Hello, lovely souls. My name is Casey Polite. Welcome to my channel. I am a therapist, a mom, a wife, a daughter, a cousin, a sister. I'm a lot of things. But what I'm going to be here with you on this new channel is vulnerable. And today I want to share some information with you about what I have learned about intimacy that has changed my perspective of myself and my marriage. So let's get started. I've been married for, it'll be 13 years this October. And as a therapist that works with couples, people often make this assumption that because I have the tools, the knowledge, the expertise, I've been in this field for over 18 years, that my marriage should just be perfect. Well, it's not. It hasn't been, it won't be, because perfection is unrealistic. I want to use this opportunity to share with you some of the things that I've learned. This, as I mentioned, I've been married for 13 years, but this is not my first marriage. This is my second one. First one was practice. That's another video. So stick with me on this journey because I think I'm going to share some. I'm supposed to be. This channel is for me to practice vulnerability and openness because it's vital to my personal growth and development. And I need to mirror that for other people, hopefully to inspire you to do it in yours. Today, I'm going to share 3 strategies, 3 tips, 3 specific things that you can do that will help bring more connectedness, more intimacy into your relationship. Hey, maybe you're not in a relationship yet. This will be for your future relationship. But I recognize that one of the things that held me back from being truly open, even though I thought I was being open in my marriage, was this idea of vulnerability. Now, vulnerability gets overused, I believe, this term, right? Transparency, be your authentic self, be vulnerable. But right now, I want to focus on vulnerability and the hard part about it. And that is vulnerability positions us to get hurt. I know that because of the hurts that I have experienced in my past in relationships, that in my current marriage, I've been afraid to be completely vulnerable because I've been protecting myself from getting hurt. And what's interesting about that is I haven't been hurt in this relationship. Now, you're like, what do you mean you haven't been hurt? Yes, the relationship has had its ups and downs over the years. But what I mean by that is my husband has not given me a reason to protect myself and my vulnerability in the way that I have. If I am completely honest, when I came into this marriage 13 years ago, I brought in a wall that was built brick by brick from previous relationships. And again, because I felt I was enlightened, I was educated as a therapist, I was in a space that I believe to build a very strong foundation for our relationship. But as time went on, intimacy, and I'm talking about emotional intimacy right now, became more and more difficult for me because of my fear of abandonment, fear of exposing my insecurities, fear of rejection. And again, all of these things were part of my past story. We all have a relationship past story that informs the decisions that we make and our ability to be vulnerable now. I think there were feelings that I was willing to share, and I called myself being vulnerable. But I had other feelings that I kept in its own box. Those were the untouchable ones, the ones where I would justify and say, my husband can't handle those. I don't want to burden him with some of those feelings and thoughts. I'll deal with whatever it is I'm dealing with internally, whether that's jealousy, envy, insecurities. But what I learned in doing that is that I was creating a wedge in our relationship because he could only get but so close. And the very thing that I was teaching my clients that I was working with, I wasn't always doing myself. So one of the things I learned about intimacy is that it is 100% an intentional act. Yes, it can happen organically, and you can have these wonderful, deep conversations and sharing emotions and going through ups and downs and growing your family and dealing with life crises. And all of these things can create emotional intimacy and closeness. But I'm talking about intentionally creating these opportunities. So the first strategy I want to give you is called practicing silent intimacy. How many of you all watch Reasonable Doubt? It's on, I don't know, Netflix, Hulu. It's on one of these channels, streaming. The therapist in the most recent episode that I watched, season 2, gave the couple this assignment. And I was like, that, it works. I'm very familiar with it. I've used it with couples. And I think that it was also something that was really hard for me to do in my own relationship. Practicing silent intimacy requires you to sit down in front of each other, holding hands or resting your hands, but maintaining eye contact for a minimum of 5 minutes without speaking and just looking at each other. That's it. Noticing body language, noticing the rise and fall of their chest, their breathing, being in the present moment, the power of building intimacy. And one of the things that I struggled with that exercise is really being seen. The very thing that most of us want in a relationship is to be completely seen and heard. But when we invite someone to see us, we're inviting them to even see the things about us that we don't like, we're not proud of, we regret, the areas where we're weak. That's not easy. And what's powerful about this practice is there is a strong emotional bond and conversation that you can have after the exercise that will open up your hearts to each other. So I encourage you to try the silent intimacy exercise. 5 minutes, set a timer, just sit in front of each other and look at each other. If you watch the episode, comment below if you are a fan of Reasonable Doubt in this recent episode of season 2. Now, strategy number 2 is going to require you to have paper and pen, unless you want to do this on your phone or put it in a Google Doc, but I highly recommend writing this out. It slows the pace of your thoughts and connects you with your pen. I think it allows you to have kind of a slower, more present moment as you write it out, but it's writing a desire letter. So in this letter, for 15 minutes, you are writing about all of your desires, including your fears, including your fantasies, and you're getting it all out on paper because you are going to share this letter with your partner and they're going to share theirs. And the two of you are going to read it silently, create some questions that you might have, and engage in a dialogue about what you read and what you learned about your person. Ooh, listen, this one, I think after you write your letter, you need to sit with it for a moment, maybe even read it once or twice. But here's the biggest tip for writing this letter: don't hold back anything. This is vulnerability at its finest. Don't hold back. Don't censor it. Don't ask yourself, what are they going to think about me if I say this? What do I think about me? Because this is something that I want as it relates to intimacy and connectedness in my relationship. Get it all out and then share. And the third strategy is to design sensory dates. So let me give you an idea what a sensory date is. So you can pick one of the senses that you want to focus on for that date. I will give you an example of audio. The idea is to focus on one of your senses for the date. So I remember when my husband and I first got married, he didn't know he was even doing this. We were 19, by the way. I was not a therapist, clearly. Freshman year of college. Little does he know, he created a sensory date, our first date, because it was his idea to play for me the whole first album of Brian McKnight, as if I hadn't heard it. I played along. Yep, I played along. And we listened to it for hours. We talked about the lyrics, we talked about the music, the rhythm, the melodies, the bridges of songs. It was one of the most intimacy building connections I think that my little young 19-year-old self could handle at that time. This is something that I think is important to carry with you and be really creative. Taste is another good one. You can use a blindfold. You can have your partner like taste different foods and guess what they are. Be present, like really focus on the sense that you're highlighting. Remember, the goal is to build connectiveness, intimacy, and embrace opportunities for vulnerability. So if you are about that life, I hope you subscribe to my new channel. I hope you come back and continue this journey with me. One thing I promise you is that I am going to share with you a lot of information, a lot of education, a lot of things that I believe will support you in your journey of personal growth, development, and fulfillment in your relationship. And I'm going to be open about mine. Subscribe, share, and come back for more. Let's do this again next week.